British Columbia believes it can eliminate cervical cancer by 2034, just 10 years from now. A new study from the province found that prioritizing the use of HPV-based screening rather than just traditional Pap tests would dramatically accelerate the elimination of the disease. Joining us with more this morning is Dr. Amanda Selk, an OBGYN at Mount Sinai and the Women's College Hospital in Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is an exciting headline. We want to dig into it a little bit. The statistics show that cervical cancer rates have been rising in Canada since 2015, after declining for decades before that. Why might transitioning more into HPV-based screening be effective in reversing the trend?
I think the most exciting thing about HPV screening, especially in BC, is that it offers an option for patients to screen themselves. So in BC, they're allowing patients to collect the HPV swab on their own, and that makes people who didn't want to get screening more able to get screening, or those who don't have access to a doctor.
And we're watching just some footage on the screen right now. This is how it would work. You'd screen it at home yourself. You'd put it in that tube, stick it in an envelope, and send it away. The cervical cancer is the fourth deadliest type of cancer in women worldwide. Why is self-testing so important within a public health response to HPV and to cervical cancer? What's the difference maker here?
So remember, PAPs are good, like they are good, and they decreased cancer in Canada to cervix cancer got really low here. So compared to the world, we're doing well. But in the last several years, we're suddenly increasing, and that's because our big cancers are in patients who don't get screened, either have never had a PAP or who haven't had one for more than 5 years. And this affects more rural patients, patients who've had sexual trauma, Indigenous people, new immigrants, Black people. So there's a lot of equity here. And self-screening gives a more palatable option to many people. So a lot of Canada is going to move to HPV screening, but they're not all moving to self-screening. And BC is the leader in this, and I think the rest of Canada really needs to look to them because it's amazing.
Yeah, BC began building up its self-screening capacity in January. This is part of their 10-year cancer plan. So, you mentioned other provinces and territories learning from this, but how have they been responding to the rising rates of cervical cancer?
So a lot of Canada is moving towards HPV screening. So all of the eastern provinces, Ontario, Quebec, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, I think they're all planning on HPV implementation, but BC has actually launched their program and added this self-screen option. So we know also that some people can't self-screen, like they might not be able to physically reach. So BC is also, you can take your kit into a doctor and get them to screen for you.
That's amazing.
So I think yeah, it is amazing. They've really done a good job at trying to give patients options.
If you live in other provinces in this country and are listening to this interview, you might be wondering, well, why are we doing this in my province? What are some of the barriers?
So it takes time to change things. They can learn from colon cancer screening where they do mailing already. So I think the technology is there. But whenever you change anything, you have to, change all the different labs and papers and educate both clinicians and patients so that everybody knows what's going on. So I know Ontario is planning to launch HPV in 2025, and it's, the largest province in Canada, but they've said that they're not going to have self-screening in their initial run.
The World Health Organization hopes to make cervical cancer the first cancer to be completely eliminated by the end of the century. I mean, that's incredible news. Canada has committed to eradicating it by 2040. So how substantial of an impact would accomplishing that goal have on public health here in Canada? How does it change the picture?
Well, cervix cancer in Canada is still a low number. It's only just over 1% of cancers in women. However, it's the fastest rising cancer in women in the last few years. And I think that's because we're missing this group that's underscreened and never screened. So self-screening is going to give us that option, and that, can really help as well. A lot of our current screening depends on a doctor, and we know that we have a primary care crisis in Canada with fewer and fewer family doctors. So giving patients options and having new technology, new things is great. And I really hope the rest of Canada gets on board and public pressure to let us have self-screening options. Because, personally, I think many of us would love to be able to screen ourselves.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Hey, Dr. Amanda Selk, thanks for joining us this morning. It was great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.